What's up, YouTube? This is Biblical Truther. I'm on my lunch break in New Orleans, Louisiana, the voodoo capital of the United States. Great place. Not really, but thought it'd be funny. Man, God is so great. How often or how fast is He answering your prayers? Are you praying? Are you asking Him to guide your steps? Are you asking Him for things that you need? This is another testimony that I wanted to make because sometimes I struggle with discerning the voice of God, because there's other things that speak to us that try and disguise themselves as something they're not, putting thoughts in your head. That's why the Bible says take every thought captive. So I do. But a couple weeks ago I came home, it was Wednesday, and my wife had told me while I was at work that she was having contractions and that she could possibly went into labor, but she wasn't for sure because her water didn't break as a conventional pregnancy goes. So I come home from work and she's having contractions and asking me what I thought, if I thought she should go to the hospital or not. She had been to the doctor that day, and the doctors had told her to go straight over to the hospital, but she could go home and get her bags and stuff and get the baby's clothes and whatnot, because they were expecting her to have the twins that day. So she came home and she wasn't hurting real bad, and she kept asking me. We went on for a good 45 minutes, what should she do? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't feel what you feel. So we kind of got a little testy with each other, because she didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to tell her to do. So I just went and laid down on the couch and I prayed about it. And I told God, what do we do? Do we go? Or do we have till tomorrow? The next day? Do we have a few days? Because she was a high-risk pregnancy, so she had two doctors, a high-risk doctor and her normal doctor. And her normal doctor said she could possibly make it till Monday, Tuesday. But her high-risk doctor said, go to the hospital. So I'm laying there, and a couple years ago when she was pregnant with my son, she had some complications with him, and she was at the same high-risk doctor back then. And, I guess they were friends, because her high-risk doctor often called and checked on her. So I was praying, and I was thinking, I kept hearing in my spirit, go, 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 like real insistent, go. But I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to go all the way, because we was 45 minutes from the hospital. I didn't want to go all the way down there and her not go into labor, and we didn't want her to be artificially induced. So I was like, Lord, if that's you telling me to go, then please confirm that. Why don't you have her doctor call her and ask her what's going on? Well, maybe not her doctor, maybe her high-risk doctor, because her doctor's never really called her on her cell phone, but her high-risk doctor had. So if you could just do that for me, we'll be on our way. So I'm laying there, my eyes closed on the couch, and about not even 10 minutes later, my wife comes in there and she's telling me all this stuff about what could happen to her if she didn't go, because the doctors had advised her to go to the hospital, and that she could be held negligible in some way, shape, or form for not going. So the way she was telling me, I thought she was reading something because she had her phone up like this, and she's looking at her phone, and she looks at me, and she looks at her phone, and she's telling me all these things. So I'm thinking she's reading some article off the internet. So when she gets finished talking, I'm just laying there thinking, contemplating what she's saying. And she was like, "Do you even hear me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I heard you. I was thinking about it." She was like, "Well, Marlena said yada, yada, yada." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Who called you?" She said, "The hospital called me." Said Dr. Bailey called Marlena. Marlena called the hospital to see if I was there yet. Wanted to know where I was at, because it had been like 2.5 hours since she left her doctor's office. And I immediately jumped up. I said, "Well, we got to go." And she was like, "Why?" I was like, "Well, the Lord just answered my prayer exactly the way I asked him to." And so we got dressed real quick, brought the kids over to my sister's house, and hit the road. And it's a good thing we did, because by the time we got to the hospital, her contractions were about 2.5, 3 minutes apart. So she was going into active labor, which was phenomenal how fast he works. If you seek him regularly, if you pray regularly, if you try and spread his message and don't disregard the things that he's leading you to do, he is so fast to answer anything you want, anything you ask him. So the twins were born that night, and they were fine. They were almost 4 pounds, which they didn't expect them to be much over 3, but they were almost 4 pounds apiece, which was great to hear for us. And they were in the NICU for the first 2 days, I think, 2.5 days, 3 days of their life. Just because they were premature. I think they were 35 weeks, or just short, a couple days short of 35 weeks. So they put them in the NICU for a little while. And I was in there all night the next day, which was that Thursday. I went in there several times and stayed, hours at a time. My wife was up and walking the very next morning after she had a C-section, which they thought was kind of crazy that she was just up walking around like she was. But we were walking around in the parking lot and through the hospital and all. But we was there till probably midnight Thursday, and then we went back to her room. And the next morning I go to the NICU about 7 o'clock that morning, and I stayed in there for about 30-45 minutes. Never seen a doctor, never seen a nurse. There was a whole nother shift coming on. And never saw the doctor, never saw the nurse. So I went back to the room and, getting the breakfast and all for my wife and getting all that situated. And then I went back to the NICU about 9:30, and I'm standing there between the little incubator things, and I noticed these little syringes in the trash can. Didn't know what they was, so I picked them up and I'm looking at them. I thought it might have been vitamins or something, so I just threw it back in the trash can. And then I went back to my wife's room after about 45 minutes. Still never saw a doctor, never saw a nurse. And they ended up discharging my wife about 4:30 that day. So me and her both went over to the NICU, and we were planning on staying there with them until they were released, because we were told from the last shift nurse and doctor that was on in the NICU before that all they had to do was gain a little bit of weight. They were doing great. It's perfect as far as they're concerned. So they just needed to put it on a little more weight, get up over 4 pounds, and they would let us take them home. Well, we wasn't in the NICU very long, and the nurse practitioner comes in and tells us that they had to start our babies on morphine because they were in such distress that morning when they came on and throughout the night that they were withdrawing from some type of medication. My wife's drug screen was clear. The baby's drug screens were clear, because we don't use drugs, for one. and they sent off a tissue sample of the cord, the umbilical cord, which was fine. So they automatically started treating them with morphine, just assuming that they were addicted to some pain medication or something. So she comes in there and tells us that they started them on this morphine, and that they were withdrawn and had all these different symptoms, and they score these babies on a thing called the Finnegan score, which I guess they look for signs of withdrawal. Which my daughter had a feeding tube up her nose, but she was doing a little bit of sneezing, and my son, he had a feeding tube through his mouth, and he was doing a little bit of tongue thrusting, which is another sign of withdrawal. So they took those two symptoms right there and said that they like them to be under a 12, but they scored like a 19, which is almost the highest that a baby can score, which we started arguing right off the bat. There's no way. Absolutely nowhere they're addicted to anything, because we don't do anything. So how could they be addicted to nothing? Oh, well, we see that you took this type of medication. She was like 3 years ago. Been off of that for 3 years. So there's no way that they could be addicted to anything. Nothing that I take would cause them to be addicted to anything. So rather than get kind of crazy with the people in there, we just kind of sat back and prayed about it. And the Lord said, they're in my hands. Don't worry about it. This is going to be their testimony. So they went through this morphine treatment for like 5 days before the cord test came back, which was negative, of course. We already knew that. But they were already off the morphine by that time. But I don't know how special or what the Lord has in store for these two twins that He blessed us with, but the devil tried to come in right off the bat and cause problems. So we didn't feel like we needed to leave the hospital and leave our babies in the care of these people after they did this. So I had a week left of vacation time, and I was going to use it that week that they should have gotten out, but we ended up spending it in the hospital. And then coming up on the second week, I didn't have any more vacation time, so I called my boss man, and I was talking to him, and my wife kept telling me before that, just call and talk to him. The Lord said, don't worry about it. He's going to take care of that too. I said, okay. So I called my boss man, and he was like, look, I got something figured out for you. We'll take care of it. You just take care of your kids. Don't worry about it. However long you need, we're going to take care of you. I said, all right. So I finally called him and talked to him on the phone, and he said that they would let me borrow for my vacation time next year to cover however long I got to be out, or as many days as I needed to use. I said, wow, that's cool. So I told my wife what my boss said, and she was like, no, they're going to just give you that time. The Lord said He's going to take care of that for you. So I just put that under my hat, went on about my day, and I was in there for almost a whole nother week. We got out last Thursday with the babies, got to go home, and I had called my boss and told him that I was on my way home, but it was midday Thursday. I'm going to just go ahead and take off Friday, and whatever y'all can give me for the week, that's fine. I'll take it. Well, he called me back Friday and said you had 3 days left of your vacation time, and his boss said that they're just going to give me 2 days to make it a full week, and I didn't have to use anything from my next year's vacation time. And I was like, wow. God is so good, man. So good. It's just a joy, when God puts a blessing upon you and helps you out in a way that He, for one, told you that He would, which, He doesn't lie. So even had He not told my wife that they were going to take care of it, not to worry, He was going to take care of it, not to worry about it, I would have been happy with 3 days for the week. But He was gracious enough to give me a full week pay last week, when I know I didn't have it. I know I didn't have 3 days extra. and then they gave me the extra 2 days to cover for the whole week. So um, it's just a blessing, man, a blessing. So how is he working in your life? You know what I'm saying? Let's put these testimonies out there. God is moving right now. God is blessing his children, and the more you come with him with, the more I feel like he's gonna bless all of us. But you have to seek him. You have to, seek his face, as it says in the Bible. You have to, learn of him, learn his ways, learn as much as you can. Everything you can learn about God, the Bible, history, real history. He takes great joy in us seeking him. You know what I'm saying? It's like us and our children, but magnified to the 100th power with him. So please, man, if you got some blessings, being poured out in your life, share it, man. Show the blessings of God. Show how good he is to us. People need to know this. You know what I'm saying? People need to know how he works. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know how to explain it. It's great. It's just joy. You know what I'm saying? It brings me joy to know that I'm loved. I grew up without a dad, but I got the best one. You know what I'm saying? And I know for a fact that he loves me, and he knows that I love him. And so yeah, man, everybody that sees this, make your video. If he's blessing you, put it out there. People need to see. People need to know he's real. There's so many people that don't believe in God, don't believe in Jesus Christ. They just got to know. They just need to see the testimonies of people, all different types and walks of life of people, because God ain't just blessing the middle class, ain't just blessing the poor, ain't just blessing black people, white people, Chinese, Mexican, Spanish, whatever you want to call them. He's blessing us all. He's blessing us all. He's pouring out his spirit, and it's only going to get more and more thick, I guess you could say. He's not finished. So please, if you got a testimony, put it out there for YouTube land. Put it out there for all those who are having trouble finding their way in this dark world as it spins out of control. But I thank y'all. Much love, and I got to get back to work.